To start with, my name is Jason Guest. I work for Central Surrey Health down on Junction 9 of the M25. Now, just to start with, I am not a clinician. So when it comes to any potential questions, treat me very, very gently, you clinicians. So, much to the organisers of this event, I was delayed in creating my presentation. So they got it very late yesterday because I've been pondering on this question about how can lean support quality and safety, in my particular case with my organisation, community health, or the healthcare environment in itself. Now the answer is, of course it can. And what I felt initially that I was going to do was stand up and talk to you about a particular project, the podiatry service, and why it needed to change because we were struggling with funding, a desire to become efficient, we were wasting appointments, and I'm quite sure all these sort of triggers will resonate with most of you in the room. And the other thought that went through my mind was, and then what I could do is talk to you about what we achieved from the point of view of extra appointments with no FTE. We eliminated non-value add, we increased appointment times from 20 to 30 minutes, and we got greater staff engagement. And as a result of that, we had very happy patients in what we were doing. But then I thought, I'm potentially making a schoolboy error because you've come from, and I just had a look at the list. I mean, some of you have travelled quite far and it's greatly appreciated. And I do apologise, when I get excited I like to walk. So, sorry camera person. And the thought that went through my mind is, potentially, what is the objective of today for you in the room? As a lean expert, I was thinking about my customers. And I thought I could talk about how in CSH we've had performance issues. We applied some lean tools and we got some improvements as a result of that. There we go. But then I thought, well, okay, so what? Big deal. And what I wanted to do was, in a way, not only stay on the dance floor talking about a particular project and a particular service, podiatry, adult dietetics, but I also wanted to take the opportunity to, in a way, talk about lean as a system and a way of thinking. So that in mind, one of the things, it was quite fascinating. I mean, I've been wandering around today. Some people think it's down to nerves, but I was actually eavesdropping in on conversations. I do apologise. But you've all signed your waivers for being videotaped and being. There was a slub clause and invisible link about being eavesdropped on by me. And it was quite fascinating. And in our organisation, and for those of you who you may strike this, they've been talking about we've been leaned. Okay, and why do we need to do more? To which my argument is, well, actually, no, you've been thinned. Potentially, you've been made anorexic. And the other thing about it too is I thought that it wasn't just about coming to you and, again, who was in the room. You've got some general concept of lean. So I wanted to take this opportunity not just to talk about tools or how many improvement activities or how many coloured belts we have in our particular organisation. I wanted to do just a little bit more. So, again, just listening to the conversation that's going on, take the opportunity to say, well, in CSH, this is how we utilise lean. So our first part is customer value add. From the point of view of being customer-centric and identifying quality. One of the challenges we have in our organisation at the moment is, in my opinion, the overuse of the word efficiency. If you're going to talk about efficiency, you've got to talk about effectiveness, because you can become exceedingly efficient, but at what point do you know you're no longer providing an effective service? The other thing about, as a trap, which on occasion I've fallen into as a lean support specialist, is just looking at making a particular area brilliant. So, for example, focusing on the referral part and making sure we've got one of the sexiest referral forms that have ever existed. But the idea around it is, no, lean, the idea about lean is an end-to-end system. So currently at the moment in our project work, we look at it from the point of view of when a patient goes to a GP or is to be discharged from acute, how do they come in? How are they treated? Where are the waiting times? How long do they have to wait? one of the things that is challenging us at the moment is people that we report to are only really interested in how long people wait from referral to first appointment. So what we could do is just front load it all and make sure that people have no delay getting a first appointment. Once you're in, you can just wait because we don't report on that. So from the value stream point of view, and then we took that and say, well, okay, how do we look to make sure that when referrals come in, how do we look to eliminate errors? So we then, in our now surgery improvement activity that we're doing at the moment, we're starting to look at the inform and inquire. So one of the things that has come out of our looking at the value stream is people just go, oh, you need nail surgery. So one of the thoughts around this is, when you apply for a passport, they give you the photographs of passport, these are acceptable passport photos. So why not create a nail surgery photo board that says, if you're a GP and you're looking at that particular condition, if it meets these graphical descriptions, nail surgery. So we're even extending it before people actually send the referral in, from the idea of how can we help our customers. Now the other thing with lean as well is the idea of the theory of constraints and the flow. Lean is about the idea of flow. It's not a great idea to improve the front end if you've got in the middle one person doing an activity, because it'll get to them and the whole thing will shut down. So what we've been doing is looking at, and for these various points, I'll go into more detail very shortly, we've been looking at the end-to-end flow and the idea of levelling and making sure that you haven't got 20 people at the front, one person in the middle and 30 people at the end, and you're wondering why the 30 people at the end are complaining that they've got nothing to do. This idea of perfection, it's quite an interesting thing at the moment of, do we focus on the idea of reducing cost, or do we focus on perfection and then the result is costs will reduce? So what is it that we're chasing? The idea of continuously improving. This is the idea of lean. It's in a way like with Toyota. As soon as a book on Toyota is published, they've moved on in regards to their production system. In our organisation, because we're a social enterprise, we're known as co-owners. Very similar to we're the first social enterprise in CSH, and it's based on in the NHS, based on the John Lewis model. This idea of getting away from the traditional command and control, and that the management will send down targets. Have the trust of the. It's quite interesting in that in a recent project, it was let's write an SOP on how to do a particular activity. To which my answer was, okay, it'll be one page, one line. Use your common sense. Okay, that was like, no, it's got to be more than one page. Okay, let's have a picture of someone using their common sense. And then, by doing all of this, you create a safe environment. But this raised, again, as I was putting this presentation together, an interesting concept. As I said, the theme around today is how can lean support quality? But what's quality? Where I work, we have some very highly skilled clinicians doing their role, and I'm quite sure, as individuals, you're highly skilled in what you do. And when we get together, they talk about, well, quality is the gold standard. We want to become a centre of excellence. To which, okay, well, that's fine. It's quite interesting. Our next door neighbours on either side want to be centres of excellence, and when I went to school, there was only ever one centre. So who's going to win? But in your organisation, as part of lean, when you say, okay, we want high quality, are you talking about quality as excellence, the gold standard? Coupled with that, so that's our clinicians, our commissioners. Now I've just got to check, are there any commissioning people in the room? Okay. Hi. Quality is value. So for them, we have a bulk contract. Here is your money. You use it how you want to do, but that's it. So straight away we've got a problem, because our clinicians want to provide the Rolls-Royce service, but our commissioners in a way have capped what we're allowed to spend. Then the other thing about quality is you can say, well, it's got to conform to a specification or a standard. I think the best practice. let's roll out best practice and that's the way it is? Or is that it? Meeting and exceeding customers' expectations. So, principle number one, your customers will define your quality and what the quality is. And that's with us. So with CSH, we make sure that we engage with our customers. Now, of course, the NHS is the quite unique thing. You have one group of customers paying for it and you have another group of customers using it. I sort of use the analogy of we're like a cinema and the parents are paying for tickets while they're kicking their kids off to watch a movie for the afternoon and the kids are watching the movie. But this is where we start. So when you're thinking about utilising lean, go straight back to the golden principle. Talk to your customers, identify what their expectations are. Take the time to engage with them. Principle number two, view it all as an end-to-end system or a pathway. Now, in our particular case, we use our co-owners to design and tell us what it is that they do. So this is, as you can see, there's quite a few no's going through here, but this is what the podiatrists did. And the really fascinating thing about it was there's the idea in lean of going to the gemba, going to the right place. You know, don't sit in a room and just draw this up on a board. You may want to start there, but get out and actually see it. In paediatric therapies at the moment, we are actually what we call process stapling, which is not quite we staple something to our patients and then adds to the pain. But basically, we will follow a patient journey with them and engage with them. Now, the really cool thing about this is when you go to your, as you'll know, if you run workshops or improvement activities or however you do it, the first thought is, oh, do we have to? Yeah, but we know where the problems are. Let's just get straight in and solve the problem. But once people get going, it's really quite fascinating in that this particular table here may go, well, no, we do it this way. And the table at the back goes, no, it happens this way. The other fascinating thing that will happen is people will start to look for improvements straight away. And that's where things like using pink post-it notes for waste, and it's really quite fascinating. And adult dietetics team, as they were doing it, you could just see the look of unhappiness on the team leader's faces. She goes, I know we do this, but why do we do it? And having it on a process map. And the really cool thing is, as people get used to it, they can then build it like this. And this was, when we started the journey, the podiatrist said, oh, there's only 3 things we do. We do general clinics, nail surgery and biomechanics. Well, actually, you do 7 things. And it's bringing it to the fore. And this was done by the podiatrists. They built it, designed it as well. And the thing about it, the concept of lean is, and Sally was talking about people having ownership of it. And I think one of the questions around, when you took a plan or out to the frontline staff members, how did they feel about it? By getting everyone engaged in this, they can go, if you walked in and said, look, in about 3 weeks' time, you're going to be doing this, what do you think their reaction was? But the thought was, okay, and they got to it. So, enable the patient flow. As I was talking about, there's no point in looking at leaning your referral process or leaning a particular ward if you don't think about it from the flow all the way through, because you can become very efficient in one area, but if you've got a constraint or a blocked hose further down, it's not going to mean a thing. And people just get frustrated. And I think that's one of the things that, and you may have experienced this in your journey of continuous improvement, is, oh, well, we spent time fixing, but it doesn't seem to have solved the problem. And that's potentially because although you've fixed a particular area, you haven't looked at the impact further down, or even what's coming in. So in this particular case, with MSK hands therapy, they looked at the flow and where concerns were. And there was a constraint around where appointments were booked. So by levelling it out, another key tool in the lean toolbox, by levelling out the whole process. And this is the other interesting thing. They set a target of, we identified the fact that here's our target, 10%. I'd like to issue a little challenge which may fly in the face of the NHS. Forget about targets. Get rid of them. Because the reality is, if you set a target, you become target focused. To give an example, in podiatry, we said, oh, we'll set 10%. And then we forgot about it because we had to tick a box in the management of, get 10% of non-value add out. They got 30% failure demand out of the system because they forgot about it. So they balanced out the flow, eliminated some steps, changed how first appointments were booked. This is what they were hoping for. We took it away. We did it to tick the box for the management program. And this is just 2 people in a room, 2 people who run the hands clinic. Perfection, continuously improving, is another thing at CSH that we're looking at. As lean people or improvement specialists, don't fall into the trap of saying, look at us, we've run 5 rapid improvement events. Or MSK Physio, we've done 2 improvement events for it for the year. Because the challenge back would be, okay, you do a rapid improvement event twice for a week. So that's 2 weeks out of 50. What are you doing for the other 50 weeks? So, one of the things that we're looking at in CSH is, yes, the idea of having a standard is good, but the problem is, and if those of you who know your second law of thermodynamics, any process where you set a standard will naturally decline over time if you don't keep looking at it. So the thing about, if you want to set standards, that's absolutely fine, but you can't just then park them and go, well, we've got best practice. The reality is best practice will eventually not be best practice. And this is the thing around, if you look at Toyota or anyone else, they are constantly looking to improve. So there's a new paradigm. The idea of produce, again, once you've identified quality, produce what is expected by your customer, no more, no less. So if you were to look at how you work now, how much of what you do is adding value, is taking care of, it's an appointment or a good appointment, or how much of what you are doing is actually sorting out failures or errors. And if you focus, and funnily enough, depending on, and I'm indebted to an English gentleman by the name of John Seddon for this, he's got a really good book called Command and Control, if you want to read it. Go and have a, you could sit there and go, well, what we want to do is eliminate 4 or 5 pieces of paper, or we want to have a smart computer system. Your first question should be, what is the demand on our service? How much of it is adding value? And how much of it are we just, I think I heard the comment, we've been firefighting. Look at what's causing that failure and go and work on it. And then that will help reduce costs because you're not spending money having to sort this out. Involving equipping people in the pathway. There's this idea of get things out of the management structure and get it down to the front people. As I was talking about, the idea of, in our organisation we have a complaints officer. He doesn't like me because I say we shouldn't have a complaints officer because all we're doing is we're recognising failure. What we should actually be doing is empowering our frontline co-owners to deal with the complaints. Give them the power to do it. Give them the responsibility to do it because A, they can engage with the patients to start with who are complaining, feedback's a gift, and B, it's not getting sucked up into the ivory castle and just becoming another statistic. Look at us, we've dropped from 31 complaints to 8 complaints. So with our co-owners, it's this idea of individual performance. We have our Quality Innovation and Change program where secondees, both clinicians and administrators, will come out for a period of time working with us. There's the traditional support from the program in that we may assign a secondee into the service, training and coaching. But the really important thing is the operational side of the tree. So we have our engaged directors, the managing director. We have 2 managing directors. They are out going to the Gemba, engaging with people. We have monthly meetings, and we also have a change champion involved in the front line. So this is someone who is dedicated in the particular ward, working on it continuously. Because what we don't want to be, as one manager said to me, well, it just feels like Quick is coming in on like the white knight on the horse to save us. That's not the point of it. And the thing about this is it's not, when you're looking at training people up, it's the fact of where I am in the team, we have this philosophy of we are actually doing ourselves out of a job. We are looking to build capability in our organisation. So in fact, we don't need a central quality, innovation and change team because we've built this capability in everyone. Okay, well, is that it? Is that all that we could be and should be doing? No. So where to from now? How are we looking to use Lean to support the organisation further? Is there's a lot of emphasis on at the moment for efficiency savings and having to balance this. And for those of you who are the real propeller heads, should recognise this as Toyota's principle number one. By having your vision and what it is that you want to achieve, it will lead you to... Lean is good at eliminating short-run costs. But the big problem is you can do that in the short run, but it's not probably as sustainable. And you wonder why 6 months later you've potentially got the same problem. By having a look at this idea of who we are, what is our vision, you can utilise the Lean concepts. And this is what we're doing. And I did note with thing that should look familiar. It's the house out of, although we didn't think of that when we did it. But this idea of, what is strong, a house is strong, building the layers. In our organisation, and this is quite new, because in our organisation we had a vision, and it was over here. And we had a strategy, and it was over here. We've spent a bit of time doing our cultures and behaviours, and it was down here. Oh, and by the way, on our website we say we're a social enterprise. It was over there. So this idea of, okay, and then we would start an improvement project, and we'd get all the clinicians in the room like this, and we would identify, well, if we did this, and if we solved it in this particular way, that would be really good. Oh, and we'd go and present, and our management team would say, oh, that's brilliant. So you're going to launch it live in a month. And then just as we get 2 days out, someone will go, has anyone spoken to IT? No. So the idea around this of, when you're thinking about it, making sure you've got the right people in the right room at the right time. The other thing that we're looking at, and I talk about this idea of a paradigm shift, is getting away from this idea of lean tools. Let's deploy the lean tools, or we've been leaned. This idea of think deeply. This guy in America, he just put one, when he came to do a presentation, he talked for 2 hours with one slide, and that's all it said. So when you're looking at it, and it's been quite fascinating, and I'm sure you may have this experience of you'll get a group of people together like this and you'll go, right, we need to save money. So let's all write some ideas down on a post-it note and whack it up. And then at the end of the idea, we're all enthusiastic until we realise that these were exactly the same ideas that were mentioned a year ago and nothing's happened. I see by the nods that it resonates. We had this particular exercise occurred to us. So, the idea of lean or systems thinking. Think deeply. Almost throw the rule book out. If you think of it from the point of view of what are our customer needs, what is the end-to-end flow that we're thinking about? And then there's this other idea that we're looking to introduce, the idea of kata. It's the way of doing. It becomes the natural way of doing things in our organisation. We empower co-owners to identify everyday non-value add, defects, engage with our customers to find out what their expectations are, and look to make it an organisational culture and look to eliminate it. Thank you very much. Any questions? Now, as I said, not a clinician, so no questions. Yeah. Thank you for your time. We have a bespoke model, which is very similar to it's in a way a combination of PDCA and DMAIC for you Lean Six Sigma propeller heads. We actually have a phase as part of our methodology called sustain. So in regards to system, we have a phase that is quite particular. We also have a bit similar to the hairdryer just up the road. Coming off this, we have a sort of instead of rollout, we have a concept called embedding the change. And we spend a bit of time, because often in the past where things have failed in sort of the traditional project management is, oh, you've delivered it, well done, punch on to the next thing. We spend time making sure that it's a sustainable methodology is in place. The other thing about it too is we in our team we utilise what we call the 4 key areas of improvement. Now, potentially the most obvious one is we focus on improving processes, but more often than not, where lean is potentially not successful is people in organisations will focus on just improving processes, and then they wonder why 3-6 months later it's gone back or it's fallen over. We had 3 other areas. Process management, so we put systems and checkpoints in place to say, you know, it's not just setting the standard. How can we observe whether or not this particular process or improvement has started to fall off again? And we're not afraid that once we've done it, that if for whatever reason it's not performing that well, to get the people back in the room to say what's going on. The other thing that we do is we spend a considerable amount of time on skills and knowledge, so around capability build. I'm sure you've all experienced in the past where people have improved a new HR process and then an email's gone out saying, we've got a new recruitment process, it's on the website, knock yourself out. And then they wonder why they're still getting the knocks on the door. So as part of sustainability, we make sure very early on that this is recognised. And then the last area, mindsets and behaviours. So we spend time engaging with key stakeholders to look at what is their vision, are they good role models? Because the other thing about it is you could just look at it from the point of view of, while I'm being focused on, I'll tick the box and look like I'm engaged, but as soon as you're out the door, I don't believe in it and I'll do what I need to do to undermine it. So we engage with and spending time identifying key influences, not necessarily hierarchical, but key influences, working with them. So we do it in a number of ways. I appreciate I'm being verbose. I hope I've answered your question. Sue.
You mentioned earlier about this idea that when you get a team together and ask them what they do and how they do it,
yep,
you'll end up with 17 different answers. Also, when a professional comes into an organisation, they use their own values, a mindset to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So, how do you... and once you've embedded processes, there's a turnover, there could be a turnover of staff.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that, I mean, the bit that's missing from me there is kind of the induction bit. How do you make sure new people coming in, what do you just tell them this is how we do it, this is why we do it, or is there a different kind of induction process to the normal?
On induction, so when people actually come into the organisation, the Quality, Innovation and Change team, or QUIC, which is probably the most unfortunate acronym for an improvement team, we go on to induction. So as soon as someone arrives in our organisation, every month we run induction. We go in and start laying the seeds with our co-owners. However, once they're in those particular organisations, you're right, you know, what we need to do is make sure it's not just intrinsic knowledge, because as I say, you know, as people, you get staff churn. So that's where things like, you know, the mindsets and behaviours, and looking at it from a group point of view. It's in PDFs, so as people come in, there's a set part to performance, your annual plans, making sure about thinking about continuous improvement. So part of this mindsets and behaviours is we have a formal framework. So it's not just a case of saying, well, okay, as a group, we will verbalise it. We actually formalise it and put it into, and I've been in organisations where part of your job description or your PDF is you will spend a period of time thinking, when it was quite sort of, let's just do it once or twice a year kind of thing. So that's the other way you could look at it. Get it into people's job descriptions, get it into their PDFs. There's another thing around the idea of what's called a heartbeat meeting. So what you do is you regularly get together as a group for a period of time and go through and the idea is, it's not a long meeting, but also it's the heartbeat of the organisation. So what we look to do is, what are the downloads from above? What are the issues? How can we resolve those? Are there any celebrations of success? So you can put a formal framework into place for that as well. So as people, because you're right. If you don't have that formal framework, people will leave or they'll stay there and go, well, actually, because the other thing that can happen is people will stay, but then they'll go, actually, I won't fill that form out anymore, I'll do it a different way. And they will, out of good intentions, naturally put variation and waste into the process. So, and yeah.
Right. Let's have one more question, if anyone's got anything else. Cheers.
I survived.
Thank you very much, Jason.